The sky was clear, despite everything, just like Corvo's mind. Yes, all he felt was rage against those who had betrayed him, but the task before him had never been more straightforward. He would find the Loyalists and Lady Emily, and he would make things right, once and for all. After returning to the Hound Pits, Corvo signaled Samuel, who was hiding nearby. He begged the Lord Protector for forgiveness for his part in the Loyalist schemes. But Corvo felt sorry for the old man. He'd been manipulated as much as anyone. He had done so much to aid him and Emily, even now saving Corvo from death so he could hunt down Havelock. Samuel had quite simply saved the Empire. Corvo knew where his targets cowered. He knew where Emily was trapped. Samuel was more than happy to take Corvo on one final journey in his boat. On the shores of Kingsbarrow Island, Corvo stood in the shadow of the huge structure before him. A lighthouse reached the clouds, topped with a luxury suite fit for an emperor. This was the last structure commissioned by Burroughs before he met his end, a place to look out over incoming ships towards Dunwall, a citadel to defend the city from any form of attack. What a reminder of his leadership, one of tyranny and oppression. Corvo is sure of one thing: whoever ruled in the coming days will be sure to tear down Burroughs' legacy in place of their own. Between the lighthouse and Corvo, an army stood waiting for him in their fortress. Every war machine he had faced before, every device used to try and stop him, was now being used in and around the fortress. But there was only one problem Havelock had overlooked. This fort had been designed to repel any rebelling kingdoms that decided to invade Dunwall. They had not considered an infiltration by the Empire's deadliest man, gifted the outsider's mark by the Black-Eyed Man himself. It took no time at all for Corvo to enter the fort unseen. By first powering down the walls of light at both entrances, he could sneak through the generator rooms. This led him to the tower holding up the bridge that connected the fort to the lighthouse. Crossing the bridge was no trouble, remaining unseen from guards and pylon alike. At the base of their lighthouse, Corvo took the only means of ascending, a single elevator. At the top, he was restricted to a single walkway leading to the entrance of the suite. He knocked out a few guards before entering. And was met by the steely gaze of Burroughs himself, immortalized in a golden statue. It was quiet. No sound of any more guards, nor the arguing of the Loyalists, but also no sound of Emily. Being cautious, Corvo blinked his way to a vantage point overlooking the main hall. Havelock stood over a large table, its surface depicting the map of Dunwall, with more maps and strategies placed on a wall. He spoke of recent events, recent regrets, admitting this plan to betray Corvo and frame him for everything had only caused his own demise. Now he was just waiting for it to happen. Trevor Pendleton and High Overseer Martin were already dead. They slumped in their seats, knowingly or unknowingly poisoned. This made things simpler, and yet not at all what Corvo was expecting. Throughout his campaign for revenge, Corvo had never killed, finding it far more effective to get what he wanted through creative means. He had caused Thaddeus Campbell to be rejected from his own order, losing Burroughs a powerful ally and giving Campbell a slower, more painful death than if Corvo had used his knife. The Pendleton twins had not only sided with Burroughs, but represented the worst nobility in Dunwall had to offer. They were corrupt, greedy and selfish beyond belief. Perhaps theirs was a unique case. But the punishment they were dealt seemed just for the endless suffering they had caused to so many. Taking Sokolov was a blow to Burroughs and halted the creation of more machines used to oppress the city. But although the royal physician used unethical methods, the truth was his expertise was invaluable to the Empire. He was not a true enemy, and would end up saving a lot of lives in the end. Lady Boyle, a similar case of the Pendleton twins, a wealthy noble who had sided with Burroughs in return for power. Even when dealing out justice, Corvo took the opportunity to make her disappear for good. He knew not where she was taken, but it didn't matter. Her connection and wealth to Burroughs had been severed. Then there was Burroughs himself, a man who had risen to power through greed and aggression. All the time Corvo had spent taking down his allies, he had seen firsthand the Dunwall Burroughs had created. The seemingly unending curfews, the militarized checkpoints, and lethal force inflicted on innocents. The Lord Protector quickly learned the true victims of Barris's betrayal and decided it should be them to decide their ruler's fate. All that needed to be done was let their city hear Barris's own confessions. Then all would know who was really responsible for the rat plague. Then again, after the Loyalists betrayed him, and he was found by none other than Dowd, he spared the man's life. Corvo really had no reason to let the assassin live, the man who had killed Jessamine. But he learned that Dowd wasn't just another pawn in Barris's scheme. He was also touched by the void, and knew more about the black-eyed man than even Corvo did. But he also expressed his guilt over what he did, and knew he would have to leave one day soon. Killing Jessamine had changed the city faster than it had in decades, and soon they would be too exposed. So Corvo decided to rob the assassin without him realizing. A sure way to send a warning, never to be seen in Dunwall again. But it was now, as Corvo perched above the last man standing between him and Emily, that he knew this was different. The Loyalists had given him hope that Emily would rule Dunwall. They had given him opportunities to strike down enemies. But once again, he had been betrayed. No matter who he sided with, they had always risked everything for more power, more wealth. Never again. Dozens of lords had lost everything because of Corvo, but it was clear to him now, it wasn't enough to dissuade others from trying to take the Empire's throne. Havelock wasn't guilty of Barris's crimes, so he wouldn't face the same public outcry. It was up to Corvo to decide his fate. After all this, blood needed to be spilled, a body to be shown to the remaining lords, a reason to end the cycle of oppression and betrayal. Corvo approached the new Lord Regent as he lamented alone. Havelock had all but accepted defeat, not even realizing his end had come as Corvo's dagger pierced his chest. It was done. No more tyrants. No more betrayals. He heard thumping nearby. Emily called out for help. She'd been locked in a room of which Corvo quickly found the key and opened. They embraced once more, finally feeling relieved that this nightmare was seemingly over.
Is it going to be okay now?
Emily's reign wasn't easy, especially taking up the role whilst being so young. But every step of the way, Corvo was by her side. She would go on to achieve many things and be remembered as a great empress. The Rat Plague was challenging, but with the knowledge and expertise of Sokolov and Piero, they managed to find a cure. The others that survived, Samuel and Callista, lived on in a better Dunwall than what it was before. Lady Emily's reign was long and peaceful, without any more acts of betrayal. Thank you for listening to the tale of Dishonored. Before I finish, I would just like to explain that with many modern open world RPGs, your choices have dramatic effects on the outcome of your own experiences. There are nearly endless ways to play Dishonored, and whilst I opted for a more non-lethal approach, you might find yourselves blinking through a very different Dunwall than I did. Perhaps with more blood spilled, you will find yourself in an even darker world. So if you ever get the chance, I implore you to try this amazing game. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to stay tuned for our next tale coming out next week. Please subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.